I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, this blog I'm going to call Myths, Lies, Exaggerations, Stretching the Truth in Vancouver Real Estate. And I might even at the end here just briefly touch on the stock market and investing for retirement as well. So I wanted to do this blog because, again, it's a reoccurring thing I see continuously, not only on the comment section in my channel here, but I see on phone-in shows, CKNW, CBC.com, Globe and Mail, Financial Post. So I wanted to go through some of these, what I'm going to call just myths, outright fabrications that just aren't true in Vancouver real estate. Yet people, there's a core group that are, kind of convinced, that this is the reason why they're being left behind. This is the reason why they haven't been able to buy a condo in New Westminster or Richmond or downtown Vancouver, and why they're falling further behind. They're looking for excuses. And I've blogged about many times over the last 7 or 8 years. You've got to do the mirror test. You've got to take responsibility for yourself and getting ahead. No one is going to help you out. The government is not your friend. Pay your taxes, work hard, get better at your career, save your money, invest it in assets that will appreciate in value and also hopefully pay you to hold them. And you're going to do incredible. But you're looking at that person in the mirror every morning. That's the only one that's going to help you out on this. But of course, there's always that core group of people. They've got biases, they're angry, they're upset. And as I've always said, I understand. I totally sympathize with a lot of these people. Living in a city like Vancouver is not easy, just like living in a city like Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York or Miami or Toronto or London or any of 70 or 80 desirable cities is not going to be easy. It's not for the weak. It's going to be for the self-motivated, positive people that want to make it work. So let me just go through some of these here. The biggest one I see, and I still continue to see, is that the Vancouver real estate market, our current prices are because of money laundering. Money launderers, criminals have driven this market up. They've caused that West End condo to go from $300,000 to $600,000. It's all about the money launderers. And I've done several blogs on this. I want to keep this one brief. Go back and watch my earlier blogs. However, if you follow me on Twitter and you read the newspapers and have been watching the media, there is a whole lot of information that's come out now in the last 3 or 4 months completely debunking this myth. Go to my Twitter feed. The Globe and Mail, Financial Post have printed multiple articles on this, saying that as it turns out, was there ever money? Did anyone buy a house with laundered money in Vancouver? I'm quite certain, yes, there have been homes, just like there have been Ferraris and Lamborghinis and new dishwashers and Nike running shoes and new fur coats that have been purchased with laundered money. But the bottom line is, there has been no bigger percentage of homes bought in Vancouver with laundered money than there has been in any other major North American city. The numbers that were thrown out earlier this year of $5 or $6 billion, which apparently was just completely thrown out of a hat, just made up. But even if those were to be substantiated and proven, as I've said before in my earlier blogs, $5 or $6 billion is not moving the needle on a real estate market or a provincial-wide market, because those numbers are provincial-wide, that's in the several $100 billion in annual sales. I always tell people to put it in perspective. My office, just my office, Macdonald, Westmar, we're one of 9 offices in Macdonald Realty and one of several hundred brokerages in the Lower Mainland. We do over $1 billion in sales, $1 billion of sales annually over in my office alone. Now, if you read these articles now, they're saying now that it's nowhere near $5 or $6 billion. It's probably in the hundreds of millions, which I would probably say sounds about right. People need to realize that there's this myth here, and they're always by people who have never purchased a home. That's the thing. They're the same people that say, oh, it's easy money out there and you can qualify for a mortgage if you've got a pulse and you can go borrow 110% of the purchase price. They've never bought a home, obviously. Anyone that has knows first off, how incredibly difficult it is to get a mortgage these days, and has been for decades now. People seem to think, these money launderer conspiracists seem to think that you're able to buy a house and pay for it with $1 million cash. Again, they've never bought a house. They don't know anything about the FinTrack documents and the requirements you need to be able to purchase a home, and the proof you have to show about not only the purchase price, but where your down payment funds came from. I won't bore you with the details, but when you buy a condo for $700,000 and put down a $150,000 deposit, or let's call it a $60,000 deposit, I have to collect that funds in the form of a bank draft. It can't be a check, it can't be cash. We also have to FinTrack you. I have to FinTrack you before we write the offer, and then I have to do a report of funds. The report of funds, I need to know your bank account numbers, the institution, if it's checking or savings, where that money came from. So it's incredibly difficult. But I think people, I read these comments online, they seem to think you can buy a house with cash. You're wrong. The other thing I would say is, where are the charges? Nobody wants to see money laundering stamped out more than I do. If you've watched my blogs here, I'm under the belief I pay way too much in tax. PTT, income tax, GST, PST. I'm taxed to death. We're all taxed to death here. I would love to see some homes repossessed, some cash repossessed from these criminals. Maybe, I'm not holding my breath, maybe it would reduce some of our tax burden that we all face. But as people realize here, our finance minister, Mr. Eby, is batting triple zeros here. No charges have ever been laid on this money laundering. I would love to see it. I'm still waiting for the proof here. Anything. Confiscate some money, confiscate some homes, something. But so far, zero out of this pipe dream $5 or $6 billion he was throwing out there. So again, if you think that the reason you haven't been able to buy your first home, your first condo, is because money laundering has brought that price up, you're only kidding yourself. You don't want to face reality. So again, get over it. I want to see it stamped out as well, the little bit of money laundering that is in this business, and it is very, very small, folks. Fraction of 1%. As I say, even if it turned out that number they threw out of a hat was true, it's still not moving the needle at all on affordability. It's going to be 1 or 1.5% of the overall market. So that's myth number one. Get over the money laundering. It's not there. Myth number two is that the City of Vancouver and the provincial government, they're your friends and they want to make homes more affordable. Again, I've done many, many blogs over the years on this. Let's talk about the City of Vancouver, how they speak with forked tongue. On the one side, they say we want to make homes more affordable for working class people. But on the other hand, they do the complete opposite and they stifle it at every single level. So again, if you don't follow me on Twitter, hey, go on, do a little of your own research on this. I've tweeted many articles over the years on this. The typical one-bedroom condo being built in the Lower Mainland right now, or City of Vancouver, a typical one-bedroom has over $100,000 attached to it in various fees, rezoning charges, permits, upgrades that the city requires for the developers. Over $100,000 is tied into every one bedroom going straight to the City of Vancouver. On the two-bedroom market, it's up close to $200,000 per unit. Let's call it a red tape fund. $200,000. So if the City of Vancouver really wanted to do something about affordability and making condos less expensive, they would cut back on all the permits, permit fees, development fees, all the holding costs. It takes now a developer years, 3-4 years, to secure a parcel of land and go through the gauntlet known as the City of Vancouver, and then you've got to cross the NIMBYs as well. That's why we have a trickle-in supply here, and it's adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to every home. So if they really wanted to do something, they would start cutting back on some of these fees, start green-lighting more development. But of course, again, it's tough. You've got NIMBYs, nobody wants it built in their backyard. They don't want the density, can't keep up with the transportation and the roads and everything else. It's a real quagmire. But the City of Vancouver has got their hand out at, and the province has their hands out at every single opportunity that's driving the price up. If you follow me on Twitter here, now, our housing minister, Mrs. Robinson, she's saying that they're building rental housing. They're going to start to build more affordable housing and rentals. Well, it turns out they're not. If you've been watching my blog here for a while, developers don't want anything to do with this provincial government or the city, for that matter. Not in this environment. Not with all the fees and everything else. So they're not building. The rental homes built for 2019 are down 30% from the year before. They're building less. Part of it is they have no money. If you watch my other blogs, I mean, the property transfer tax and real estate drive this province. It is the province. Property transfer tax brings in billions and billions of dollars into the general coffers. It's the biggest tax grab going. When you slow the market like the NDP has for the last couple of years, although now, of course, sales were up for a fourth month in a row here, they're starting to show signs of recovery. But that's tens of billions of dollars in lost PTT revenue. So they don't have the money to build these rental homes. Again, they speak with forked tongue. There's a reaction to every action. If you want to slow the condo market, you want to slow the real estate market artificially with various taxes, more bureaucracy, more red tape, and just an overall bad business environment for developers to work in, then the consequences are going to be sales are going to go down, and that's going to be tens of billions of dollars in lost PTT revenue over the next 3 or 4 years. That revenue, which was going to go into affordable housing or rental stock. So again, it's a myth here. Don't fall for it. These governments will tell you anything you want to hear to get your vote. But what's actually happening is much different. You know, I had a guy, and this is a pretty reoccurring thing here. These guys watch the news and they see all these dark clouds. I had a guy ask me, you know, as an investor, as a landlord, provincial government now, which wasn't surprising, has decided they want to raise property taxes by close to 50% over the next 5 years. Not surprising. If you watch my blogs over the years, I tell people that our property tax in the province of BC is some of the cheapest in North America, if not the world. Where they kill us, though, of course, is on our property or on our income taxes. But property taxes here are dirt cheap. If you've got $1 million condo in Yaletown, you're probably paying about $2,200 a month, $2,200 a year in property taxes. That same $1 million condo in a place like Miami, Florida, is about $25,000. But of course, they don't have a state income tax in Florida. So it doesn't surprise me that they're going to raise property tax. I mean, we're already getting 6, 7, 8% raises anyways. All this is doing is bumping another 2 or 3% annually. No big deal. Our property taxes are already dirt cheap compared to other jurisdictions. But he asked me, would that have some sort of influence on me buying investment properties or holding my investment properties? He also tied it into the fact that, you know, the NDP government with this insidiously stupid, you know, rental cap that, you know, it used to, for the last 20 years, we've been able to get by on CPI, inflation rate, plus 2%. So average about 4% or 4.5%. Last year, they rolled that back to 2.25 or 2.5. This year, they just announced it at 2.6. But I tell people, I don't raise the rent on my good tenants. I wait until they move out. They always eventually give notice, if it's a year or 2 years or 3 years, and then I'll raise the rent back up to market rent, as do the vast majority of my investor clients. So it's not going to make any difference to me, even though this is, 2.6%, yet property taxes are going to be going up double digit. Strata fees are going up 7 or 8%. My insurance is going up double digits, but we're only allowed to raise it 2.6. So don't even get into that dumb game. If you get a good tenant, he's taking care of the place, he's not bothering you, then I don't raise the rent. Eventually all tenants leave, and when they do, I'll bump the rent up to whatever I want. If that's $300 more a month or $400 more, I'll reevaluate it and raise the rent back up to full market. And that's the other myth here that these governments will tell you. NDP government tells you that look at what we're doing for you here. We're capping the rent increase at 2.6%. It's not doing anything. This is smoke and mirrors. Most landlords, that's fine. If they do want to raise it 2.6, go ahead, and I have many investors some that do that. But a lot of them are like me. I'll just wait. If it's a good tenant, I'll wait. If they're there for 3 years, I'll bump the rent $300 and get it back up to market. What I'm trying to tell you here is it's smoke and mirrors. The 2.6%, They'll make it sound like they're saving you all this money. They're not. They're not. Eventually, the landlord will raise it back up to full market and you will pay for it. Just like they're increasing the property taxes. Who do they think is going to pay these increased property taxes? It's not going to be me. It'll be me on my principal residence. But on my investment properties, I'm going to pass that property tax increase straight on to my tenants, as is every landlord. That's how it works. So they think, and they'll make it look like they're looking out for British Columbians, as Carol James likes to tell people. They're not. It's smoke and mirrors to buy votes to make it look like that. I was in the movie theater yesterday, 2 nights ago, watching a movie, and I noticed at the beginning, before the movie came on, Vancouver empty homes tax, they're doing a little video at the beginning of the movie to tout how they're looking out after your best interests, and they're going to bring housing costs down. It's in this little video, a little montage. There are thousands and thousands of homes empty in downtown Vancouver. That's a lie. It's a myth. Again, to buy votes, to make it look like they're doing something here to help the little guy. They're not. The revenues just aren't there. Can somebody tell me what the income is for 2019 on the foreign buyers tax? Because the NDP government said that was going to be bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. There was 10% of the buyers or 8% of the buyers were foreign buyers. Do we ever hear anything about the foreign buyers tax? 2 years ago, I told you that it was a joke. Nobody's triggering the foreign buyers tax. I sell probably at least 7 or 8 homes a year to permanent residency buyers that have just gotten their permanent residency card. Many of them contact me before that and say, hey, I'm interested in buying a condo. I'm living in Hong Kong, or I'm living in mainland China. I'm in the process of waiting for my PR. No need to buy right now. Why would you? And trigger that 20% foreign buyers tax. Wait, in some cases, it's only a month away or 2 months or even 6 months away. Wait till you get your PR card, and then you can buy without triggering the foreign buyers tax. Nobody is triggering the foreign buyers tax, and even before it came in, the only people that were buying it as foreigners were in the process of either getting their PR or their Canadian passport, most of which were coming through the Quebec Investor Program, which they still are. They're minting thousands of them every single year. Again, these are things to make it look like they're doing something, but in the end of the day, these increased taxes, this increased bureaucracy, red tape, only gets passed on to the tenants at the end of the day. There might be a delay there. As I say, I've got tenants that have been in units right now. I think the longest I've had is coming up to 3 years this December. 3 years, I've kept his rent the same. He's great. Tech guy, works in Gastown. He's in one of my crosstown units. Never calls me about anything. I'm keeping his rent the same. He's a good tenant. Eventually he'll give me his notice, because probably what's going to happen is I'm going to sell him a condo. We've talked many times. He's in the process of saving. He makes 6 figures. I would say in the next year, he's going to be calling me up and he's going to want to buy a condo in Vancouver, a 1-bedroom. At that point, I'll sell him a condo, and then I'll put a new tenant in that unit and raise the rent $300. The message here is don't stop looking for excuses to your lack of success. The government's not your friend. Pay your taxes. Try and distance yourself as much as you can from them. The only one that's going to help you buy a home here or save for retirement is you. You're looking at him or her every morning in the mirror. Take the mirror test. These are myths that they'll tell you. The final few I'll tell you, you'll continue to see people that have biases. They have no credibility that will tell you that this market is in free fall. It's crashing. The prices are going down. Just keep holding out. It's a lie. As I've said many times on my blog here, the downtown condo market, the Vancouver 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom condo market has barely been scathed here. Townhomes, even the starter level detached market in areas like Richmond, New Westminster, East Side Vancouver are very close still to all-time highs. There's no panic. Prices now have been starting to slowly go up, not down, up. It was the correction that never was. The only thing that was ever hit from this was 3 years ago in the luxury detached and luxury condo market. Even that now is showing signs of recovery. Step back, peel the curtain away. Who are these people that are telling you this stuff? I can tell you that they're usually anonymous bloggers in their basement who are disenfranchised, they're mad, they're angry. And again, I understand their frustration, but instead of doing something about it, taking action, for them and taking control of the things they have control over, getting better at their job, getting a side hustle, buckling down, making it work, just like everybody else does. They choose instead to put all this effort and all this energy into complaining and cherry picking data, which is complete myth most of the time, or made up. A lot of the stuff I see, I cringe at some of the stuff I see. It's just lies. Get away from that stuff. Final myth that I'll talk about is what I Unplugged my book. I haven't plugged it for a little while. In my Along for the Ride books, I get a lot of questions on this as well. With the stock market right now being at all-time highs, everyone's predicting a crash just around the corner. We just had a 10% correction last Christmas. We're due for one. But in chapter 7 of my book, I often refer, if you haven't bought my book, I refer them to chapter 7 of my book. How the stock market really works and how to build a portfolio the right way. And this is one of the most hideously heinous myths out there, perpetuated by the financial industry. And I go in great detail in my book on it, how they will have you think that the stock market is an enigma. It's incredibly complicated. You need me, a money manager, to handle your money for you. You're not smart enough. This is way too difficult. You need me, pay me 1% of your portfolio, tens of thousands of dollars, or I'll get you into some managed mutual funds where you're paying 2% or 2.5% MERs, management expense ratios, because you can't handle it on your own. Way too complicated. Folks, that's a myth. It's an outright lie. You have a huge advantage over institutional investors and money managers if you can just buy and hold. But of course, if you watch Bloomberg or CNBC with the ticker going across and the prices going up and down, they'll make it sound like you've got to be trading stock. You've got to be getting in and out of positions, rotating your portfolio. Well, the myth there is, and what they keep perpetuating that is because that's how these money managers make their money. They don't make money off you if you buy an ETF and hold it for 20 years. They don't make any money off you if you buy 100 shares of Johnson & Johnson or 100 shares of Apple and tuck it away for your kids for 20 years. They need to, what we call the churn. They need to continue to buy and sell and get you in and out of positions. The problem is that 90% of these guys can't even beat the S&P 500 index. Of the 10% that do, they just barely beat it. And they can never repeat it for a year or two or more. Most people should just buy a simple indexed portfolio. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the TSX 60, maybe a European or an emerging markets fund. That's going to do the job for 90% of you. You're not going to pay any transaction fees or very little MERs, peanuts. That will do the job for just about everybody. Now, if you want to get a little more advanced, then just buy some good blue chip dividend paying stocks, collect the dividends and keep reinvesting them. But that is one of the myths here that just trip up so many people. And I give you the straight goods here from some pros, some experts that will tell you the same thing that are in the money management game in private equity in New York and on Wall Street. You put a few drinks into these guys, as my friend will tell me, they'll be the first to admit that it's all a facade. Trading in and out of stocks and trying to buy this, sell that. It's a myth. It's a lie. Buy, hold, real estate, trading in and out of stocks doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's a product that can be traded because you're paying very little for trading costs. Buy, I get my trades for free. Most people are going to pay $9 a trade to buy or sell, and you can liquidate or sell a stock in a matter of seconds. It's even worse, as I tell people, with real estate. You never want to be speculating or have that trader's mentality with real estate. Because A, it's going to take several months to sell a property, if not longer, and it's going to cost you $10, $15, $20, $30,000 in commission. It's incredibly expensive to trade in and out of real estate. So why play that game? Buy your principal residence, enjoy it, live in it, Take advantage of the record low interest rates we've got. If it's an investment property, buy the right property, get a realtor who knows the market and what you want to buy. If you want to buy a condo in downtown Vancouver, hire a pro who knows all the stratas and knows the good product from the dogs. Put a tenant in it, keep it for 20 or 30 years, and you're going to do incredible. Then reevaluate it. If you're retired, sell it if you want to or whatever. Buy and hold is the way to go. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.